Okay, so we're gonna fret. I've decided we'll fret now. So fretting time, first thing I need to do is match the radius a little tighter than what is the neck radius. So I got my little fret bender here. Bend some fret wire here. Make sure it seats, and oh yeah, that's a very shallow radius on that side. Go a little tighter than that. So we just have to drop this wheel down just a tiny bit. Do half a turn. Make sure we're freewheeling. And we're just keeping the tang in the slot in the wheel here. And we can go a little tighter than that too. Okay. We're aiming for this radius. So I think we are very close. Yeah, so if you can see there, there's a tiny little gap in the radius. And that's so that when you push the center of the tang down, it pushes the ends out. I'll show you a bit more of that later. Alright, so we got our little container, and we've got our fretboard, and we're going to leave off about an inch from the end. I'm just going to clip that right now because it's straight. When it went through the bender did not clip it, did not bend it, so there's a straight section there. And basically I give myself maybe a 1/16 inch overhang, just enough to make sure there's plenty of wire there, and then I aim for clipping it. So, but the wise man that taught me this said start at the wide end, so if you cut one too short, it can go in one of the remaining frets. Okay, so we're set for that, and now we're going to get set up to actually install these little buggers. Okay, so now I'm set up. I've got all of my parts cut out, all of my frets cut to rough length, and now I'm removing the tang from the ends because I got to get around the bound fretboard. So we're now just filing this tang down for about, I don't know, a little over 1/8 of an inch on each end, because it depends on how much longer I cut the fret wire to begin with. So we're just digging down in there, and I don't know if you'll be able to see there, I'm not quite down to the end. I can switch to this file if it works better. It's a little less aggressive, and the whole idea is to get where the tang was flush with the bottom side of the fret, and trying to keep it square and etc. This is not entirely exciting television, but it is a part of the process, and it's what's necessary. Just make sure we're staying reasonably square here. And the idea is I'm going until the back of the fret wire gets shiny at the same time as where the fret tang was. That's pretty darn close. The hope is to not cause too much of a raised area. Let me pull that out of there and you can see it, and see if I can get it to flicker some light at you. See how we're getting just an L shape there, just to make a notch for the fret wire to go over the top of the binding. And it's about an 1/8 inch. And the idea is you don't want to cut so much away that you make a little step down on this end. But let me just flip it around, put it in again. And I just leave enough out. Just leave it stick out just enough to cover how much I'd like to remove. You want to take enough so that when it flattens out, the spreading action has enough room to happen as well. So I'm doing a little over an 1/8. And I'm kind of using the vice jaws as a guide here, just to get it, you know, very close to roughly done. It only takes a few light passes. There we go, we're very close there. That's it. Right there, that was it. Bring this one up and you can see it too. Try to get that to hold just right here. Okay, that's the one we just did. See how it works. And then I'm going to take it over to the neck real fast. Actually, let's see if I can bring it over here. There's enough room in the neck. So the idea, it's a little zoomed in here, but the intention is to make sure that I leave enough tang to fit. It's really tough to hold on to these little buggers. The idea is to leave enough tang to fill the space as much as possible, but not so much that you push the binding out. Anyway, we'll keep doing that until we're through all of the frets here. Okay, so all of our frets have been notched nicely, and I took care of cleaning out all the fret slots again and just preparing the fretboard to get frets in it. We're about to put the frets in. This is a big deal. So, don't know what I have much to say, so I guess what it comes down to is, since every fret is notched, I've got my little V cradle here. It's just a V block. I'll hold the neck solidly while I pound on it. And there are a lot of ways to put frets in. I've seen a few dozen probably. I've seen quite a few ways. The two that I've seen the most are probably pounding and pressing, or hammering them in and pressing them, or pressing them in. Some people hammer them and then come back later and press them afterwards. I go ahead and the first guitar I did, I hammered them in, and I had pretty decent success with that. So I'm going to stick with just hammering, and I'll try to get some shots with you guys brought in closely so you can see what the actual process is. I think I feel the best about right there. And so I'll describe it, and then I'll bring you guys in and show you a decent view. The idea is that the fret wire has been bent to a radius greater than, or I guess smaller, a tighter radius than the radius of the fretboard itself. So that means it's going to touch on the outside edges before it touches in the middle. And what that means is when you press it down in the middle, so the idea is the way you put this in is you'll tap on one side and tap on the other side and walk your way in towards the center. The idea there is you engage the outer edges first and get them pressed, seated You don't plant them. You get them seated. I guess you do kind of plant them, don't you? Interesting wordplay there. So you get one side seated, and then you get the other side seated, and you work your way gradually towards the center. And as you do that, you're flattening this crown out a little bit. And by doing that, you're spreading the ends out just a tiny bit. And doing so puts the little barbs in, making kind of an L shape or a diagonal shape. And that just helps it resist its pressing or pulling out. It helps to resist pulling it out, or helps to resist it pulling itself out or popping out. That's how I was taught, and I seem to be doing okay with that method. There may be others. I'm sure there are others. I know there are others. There are definitely other ways to do it. This way seems to work for me, so this is the way I'm going to do it. You don't want to bend it too much tighter, because you don't want to have that center press. So I think that is enough yakking. I got my little mallet here, and we're about to put some frets in this guitar neck. In this neck, we're going to put some frets in. So I keep a good press, good holding here, and then I just kind of put my finger on it and tap one side in, then I swing to the other side and tap the other. Now I just work my way towards the middle. And then once it's in, I give it a good all over pound in there. And then I just check to make sure it's pressed in nicely. It needs to go in just a little bit more here. There we go. Yeah, so we got one fret in. Fret number 1 is absolutely in. Big deals. This is cool. I got the first fret in. Oh, I should have mentioned I adjusted the truss rod to get this nice and straight before I started, so I'm kind of getting an idea of what putting the frets in will do to my straightness. I should have mentioned that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I put a straight edge across and adjusted the truss rod to bring out. It had a little bit of back. Yeah, it had a little bit of back bow in it already, and so when I put the frets in, it's gonna get back bow again. It's gonna get some more, but that's okay. The truss rod should help adjust that out. And so once I get all the frets in, I'll show you that. Yeah, I am putting in the frets on this thing. This is a big freaking deal, man. Too cool. Anyway, we put it in on that side, we hold it, tap it in on this side, hold that, and we just start working our way towards the center. And now that it's in, we get it good and seated, and there's how you put a fret in. Well, that didn't take very long. 15, 20 minutes? Maybe. Frets are on, everybody. That is cool. It looks so neat. Alright, so the thing I want to do is I'm curious. Let's see how out of flat this took us. Took us. I said something funny. So I don't have a notch straight edge, but I do have an 1/8 inch brass setup bar and some 1/8 inch thick machinist's parallels. that I can put in 3 points, and I can get a rough idea of how out of straight. Oh wow, very little, but yes, definitely some. It's about a 16th, not even that. It's like less than a 32nd. So what I'm going to do is play with the truss rod just a little bit and get that back to flat. There, let's see how that did. Okay, try one more. This isn't precision straight, but it's reaching that vicinity, and we are now as straight as I was when I started. That's cool. Let's make sure we're down the center. One of the tricks to this is being sure you stay along the same axis. Yeah, that's pretty straight. Okay, I've got a fairly straight neck with frets in it. With frets in it. Put a bird on it. Yeah, this is cool. I'm excited. Okay, we're set up in the vise. I'm over my elation of having frets in. Now it's time to dress these things. So I've got this 2x4 with a couple of angles cut into it for holding in the file. And this one's holding the file at 15 degrees right now. And I've got it stubby. I'm not sticking too far out here because I need to be sure I don't slam too hard into this this little area here. It's just a matter of holding the board on, and yes, the frets, the radius is there, but I just kind of hold it until it's like it can't twist any further this way. So I'm kind of holding it onto this edge as best I can, and that puts us more like a 12 or 13 degree angle. But we're just looking to get the ends all flush with the binding here. And there's a couple of them that are already close. So you kind of, it starts out as sort of a gross treat them all sort of option, but then there's a point where only a couple of them are sticking out and the rest are fine, and you don't want to remove any binding, so you kind of selective after a bit. But you start out sort of broad brush, and you got to get yourself up on the frets here. And this is a take your time process. Take it easy, don't go in a rush. And it's literally just filing until all of them are flush with the binding. Okay, now I've got a somewhat finer file, and one of the other angles, the first one was 15 degrees, these are 22.5, and we're just kind of beveling the ends now. So I just go until the ends are nice and flush. Same kind of story. Okay, so now they're all really smooth. They're almost perfectly safe. They're a little rough. They're a little sharp, I should say. They're all flush and they're beveled in the way they need to be. And I've got this little file. This file it's got safe edges, they say. This side is a rounded safe edge. There's no teeth on this edge. And so it can ride against the materials and not hurt them too badly. This side is a square safe edge. It's also got no teeth, but it's a little sharp, so you can get right down to the corner of something without filing the material you're on, but you do have to be a little careful because it can leave a line still. I'm mostly focused with this rounded edge file, and I've already done this one. We'll just take a little, we're just getting in there to round over that surface just a little bit to make it clear. Basically you're removing that burr. And then I just feel it. If it feels okay, then I'm happy with it. Maybe one swipe with the square edge down inside to get those real tiny Sharpies. But this task is a very slow, very methodical process. Alright, the ends are all well dressed. There's a nice smooth feel along these here. And I went through and checked it with a straight edge as well, and it's not very far off. When I adjusted out after the frets went in and I adjusted out with the truss rod, there's only like one fret that's a little bit high. So what I think I'm going to do is prepare this for leveling, and the first thing that means is lots and lots of tape. Lots and lots of tape. So we're taped, and I'm going to take a Sharpie, mark the tops of all of these, and all I'm going to do is make sure that they are leveled. So I'm barely going to kiss them until they're clean. I'm not really going to take too much height off. They seem fine. And most of them feel like they are pretty level anyway. There's only one or two that had a little bit of rocking when I was playing around. So I'm going to mark these, and I've got this. I'm trying to decide. I may get yelled at for this, but I found a file that is remarkably flat. Like, I went over it with a straight edge and I didn't see any light. I have 3 other files that are nowhere near flat that I would not use, but there we go. So now there's Sharpie on them. This file is incredibly flat, and I feel like I'm tempted. I wanna just run it over gently and see where things are. It touched every single one of them, except that one, this one. There's a fair bit down here I'm not touching. They're a little low. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm not sure I want to file. I'm going to use sandpaper. I'm going to use my radiusing system, my little radiusing template. I'll bring that in and I'll show you that process. Okay, so brought back out the radiusing template here. This is my 12-inch. I'm going to check that it's straight first, because that's a vital thing. I need to shim it on that side just a tiny little bit. And as long as it's not too dishy, it should be okay. I like it. I think that'll do all right. Okay. Of course, while I do this, I'm also going to be very frequently double checking that it's staying straight as well on the fretboard itself. So I'm not too worried about introducing twist, I'll be checking to make sure I don't. And this is just some 220 sticky back. It's the same stuff I used to do the final radius on it. And I think I can just... You guys ready to cringe? Because I'm pretty sure some people don't like this idea, but that's okay. I think I'm going to be alright. And that has touched every one of them very well. That's good. Actually, that is remarkable. It has literally touched all but this one, and it barely skipped this one. And there's a little spot here, maybe a tiny spot there. So I'm going to consider this working very well. And it's not taking but 2 or 3 passes. It's not like I'm introducing a massive twist or anything. That is all but done. It's just a little low right there yet. Yeah, I'm calling this method, unless some physics property that I am misunderstanding enters in, this seems to work. I've literally done 2 passes and I'm almost done, I think. Of course, I won't be done until I've checked it with a straight edge. That, I think, took care of all my low spots now. Here we go. Moment of truth. It's a little bit hollow in the center, weirdly enough, with my crappy straight edge. Yeah, just a tiny hollow in the center, which can be worked with. Absolutely can be worked with. And it's touching in the center, so I'm not frightened. I may be completely ignorant here. Oh, in fact, I know I'm ignorant here. But this is feeling like it's working. I have removed Sharpie from every fret along its full width. That tells me oh, there's one spot I didn't right there. That would have messed with my A string. Okay, I'm going to do one more pass. What is that? The third? This will be the 4th pass. And I'm barely moving 6 inches, so it's not like it's seeing a ton. I'll go that one time. There's just a little tiny low spot right here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be okay. There. Yep, that touched across. Perfect. So I may have removed 6 or 7 thou. I doubt it was much. And you can definitely tell, so the wear pattern, I'd like to get you a good close-up here. So as you can see, those came out reasonably well. You can see a couple of areas where it was a little high, but it definitely touched all along it. And the straight edge doesn't lie. The straightish edge doesn't lie. I'm in the ballpark and happily competent in that, which is cool. The next steps are polishing, and I'm gonna take a pile of sandpaper to it. I'm gonna grab that right now. So now I'm gonna take various grits of sandpaper and polish the tops of these frets. I have a file, a radiusing file that I could use, but things are so symmetrical already that I'm not really worried. I don't think I need to reshape them that bad. So I'm going to start with this really used 220 and work my way up from there. This really used 220, I chose it because the stuff I just radiused with was fairly newish 220, so it left some scratches. This used used 220 should give me a decent shine on that new stuff, so it should take the scratches from the new stuff out. And we're literally just gonna give it a good cover here and just polish them up. Alright, so we've used sandpaper up to 1,000 grit just now. I went over to the air hose and blew it off a bit. And now I've got this this stuff called micro mesh. It's if you've never seen it, it's the coolest thing in the world. And it's they use it for polishing airplane windshields. And it's just a series of grits that start at 1,500, which is fairly coarse, and works its way up to something called 12,000 grit, which is, it doesn't even feel, it feels like leather. It doesn't even feel rough, but it does a polish. So I'm just going to take this stuff, I'm going to go lengthwise on all of them. And it's foam padded, so it really doesn't need a lot of pressure before it'll conform, which is good. I'm just polishing up the crowns here. And we'll get them nice and smooth and clean and crisp and shiny. Okay, so that was 12,000 grit to there. Now I've got some denatured alcohol. I'm just going to wipe them real fast with a dampened cloth. This will get any stray Sharpie marks, if any, taken care of. There aren't many. And this has some nicely polished frets now. Might have been a little early on the polishing this. Not sure. But it's done now. Yeah, there's a little Sharpie left there. Tiny little bits of Sharpie left behind in a couple of tiny little spots, but the tops are nice and well polished. Doesn't take much alcohol here. Just getting rid of any Sharpie marks is all. And then I'll snap some good shots of this because I think they look great. Alright, it's time to pull off the tape and see the whole fretboard in its fretted state. So we'll bring it back after its tape's removed. And there we have a very cleaned up fretboard with frets on it now that are in good shape. Looks pretty straight. Looks pretty darn straight to me. Put the straight edge back on here. See how well it is. Yes. Very good. Very good. Okay, so we now have a fretted fretboard. I'm gonna take a couple more pictures, and then I think we're ready to put this thing on the body. Pretty close. Cool. I'll bring you back after a bit.